I find it on a day when Hong Kong is hit by a climate-fueled disaster that yesterday the president of the free world called it the greatest con job. But the data is more secure on climate change now than it ever has been. We only need to look at the Hong Kong Observatory records. In 2024 was the warmest year in Hong Kong's history, and the records go back to the 1880s. August was the wettest August in Hong Kong's history. I've been in Hong Kong, I moved from Singapore just 5 months. In that, myself or my family have hit by 2 T10s, 5 black rain events, heat waves. The evidence to every single resident of Hong Kong is that this is not a con job. It is a reality that we face week in, week out, every single year. And this will just continue into the future if we don't address the problem, which is to reduce our emissions.
I'll get to you some of your suggestions in just a minute. I want to ask about the economic impact. How would you go about calculating the economic loss? Would those losses be lessened if there were earlier warnings, better preparedness to lessen the impact of these extreme weather events?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that if you have a look at how Hong Kong has responded to this typhoon, you would say that it responded perfectly. It warned the people of Hong Kong, it shut down airports, shut down schools, told people to evacuate, gave people information that they should not be outside. If you're inside, keep away from the windows and at high levels. And so the resilience of Hong Kong will be shown when we start to open up on Thursday and Friday. The economic impacts are obviously significant of shutting down commerce. But the importance when we think about these events is that we learn from each individual disaster, that we're better prepared for the next one. And I'll just repeat that because of climate change, you will get more and more of these events. And when they occur, they'll be of a higher intensity. So we cannot rest on our laurels. We cannot be confident that just because we survived this event, that if we don't invest in the science, if we don't invest in the engineering, we want to make sure that we're resilient for future events. And then Hong Kong becomes a city that we can be confident about, that will survive the future, and therefore will continue to have the economic investments that Hong Kong has had for the last decades or more.
Now, I heard before today that Hong Kong can expect 5 more storms in this current typhoon season, so one of them would be today. But I want to ask about the economic modeling, the projections. How are you seeing the use of artificial intelligence in projecting and predicting these storms, assessing the economic loss and the destruction from the storms?
Well, climate change is an evolving science. There are many things that we know with certainty. We know that if you increase the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the temperatures of our planets will go up. If the temperature of our planet goes up, then it causes these extremes: monsoon, black rains, typhoons, heat waves, droughts and wildfires. But the area of learning in climate change is to more accurately predict exactly when they're going to occur and more accurately predict exactly where they're going to make the largest impacts. And this is where AI can help the models that are based upon the physics of how the Earth works. We can supply data in real time, which will enable us to get better projections of what the wind speeds will be, what the rainfall amounts will be, where the greatest storm surges will be. And then the governments can make sure that their emergency responders are in the hotspots of the greatest damage. We then can use AI to better understand how we recover from these events, which are the critical pieces of infrastructure that we need to preserve and protect and repair immediately, and which are the ones that we can wait days or weeks to reconstitute. So I think that AI does help on this, but the most important thing is that we're aware that the future will be very, very different than the past. The climate that your viewers have been used to for decades is not the climate of the future. We are going into uncharted territory regarding the heat on our planet. And when you warm up the planet, the natural mechanism is to produce more typhoons because they dissipate energy. So if we have a warmer planet, we have to expect greater frequency of typhoons. When they occur, they'll be of a greater intensity. When they occur, they will intensify for longer. When they occur, they will stall over land, meaning that the storm surge coincides with high tide being more destructive, and meaning that you have greater volumes of rainfall for any individual typhoon than you had in the past.
Benjamin, as a climate scientist, I know that you have an 8-point plan on what can be done or what should be done now. Are you able to give us an executive summary, just a brief on what you expect or you hope that governments can do?
Well, I think there's no ifs and buts about this. We need to tackle the climate problem. It is a big problem. We desperately need to invest in the science here in Hong Kong, so Hong Kong is safer for future generations, and the Greater Bay Area and mainland Asia, and indeed for the whole planet. We need to invest in community action to make sure that this is a roadmap for all people, young and old, rich and poor, foreigners and residents. We need to work hand in hand with the governments and the private sector. There needs to be new partnerships. So the best scientific advice is given to engineers to keep the city safe. And the best scientific advice is given to government so they can make the most appropriate policy that, yes, keeps us safe, but also enables us to expand our economy. We need to make sure that we invest in renewable energy because we have to get at the core problem, which is our increasing amount of greenhouse gas emissions. If we don't solve that problem, the city is just going to be hit again and again by bigger and bigger typhoons.